Hey everybody, welcome to Pop Culture Philosophers. I'm Rockin Robbie Billups, and today we're taking a look inside Transformers #1 from Marvel Comics in 1984. That's right, everybody. Thanks for checking out the video. I am Rockin Robbie Billups, and today we're diving into Transformers #1 from Marvel Comics. Now, I don't have the original comic book, but I do have this reprint of issues 1, 2, and 3 that was published by Marvel Books. Think of it as an early form of a trade paperback, a collected edition graphic novel, something like that, right? Now, it does not contain the original covers. It does not contain chapter breaks. Heck, it doesn't even have the creators listed on the book, and it does not include that amazing first issue cover by Bill Sienkiewicz. Now, I would like to get a copy of the original one because, honestly, the reprint on this, it leaves a lot to be desired. It's nice that it's in a bigger size, a bigger format. It's cool that this exists. I was able to pick this up very cheaply, but mine's kind of falling apart. There are bits that are literally hanging on by a thread, and it doesn't quite deliver the colors in the way that I would like them to be delivered, but at the same time, I also don't even know if the colors are that good on the originals because I've never read this book. Now, I'm a huge Transformers fan. I grew up loving the cartoon, grew up enjoying the action figures, what little I could get. In fact, most of the time I had GoBots. Like, my grandparents would give me GoBots because they would think, hey, this is a Transformer, right? But I'm really excited to dive into this because since the Energon universe started, Daniel Warren Johnson started doing stuff with Transformers, it has reignited, re-energized, some could say, my whole vibe with Transformers, right? I've been maintaining my action figure collection a little bit more. I buy more of the modern figures, not really a lot of the vintage stuff for me. But I wanted to dive into this and check it out. I do love this idea that they did reprint it. You know, this was a very huge selling comic. I think the first issue went through 3 printings. And then, of course, this, which has 1, 2, and 3. I don't know if they did any more outside of this. It's got a new cover, which is very rad. It's very radical, very 80s, very airbrushy, chromy. I don't know, there's something about it that's really cool. Like, if this was like a poster, I would totally want to frame this and put this up somewhere in my house. It is a little overdone. It is a little overwrought, but I had fun with it. So basic backstory on Transformers. Hasbro had approached Marvel Comics to do a G.I. Joe comic to promote the toy line. It was a huge, resounding success. So 2 years later, they come in with the same approach towards Transformers. Now, editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, came up with the basic idea that there would be 2 warring mechanical alien factions from another planet called Cybertron that would be stranded on Earth, and it would be about that. That's what the story is going to be. Now, all of these characters had profiles written by writer Bob Budiansky. Right? Now, he would eventually come on as the writer of this series, but the first 4 issues have a few different writers, right? First of all, it is plotted by Bill Mantlo, and it is scripted by Ralph Macchio. It's got artwork by Frank Springer, and of course that will change over time as well. This has become known as a big deal as far as what it did to develop Transformers lore and mythology. So yeah, let's do it. Let's dive right into The Story Begins, issue #1 of Transformers. Now, I guess at this time they hadn't really nailed what the story was. This is, I don't know the timing of the animated series with this comic book, but I'm assuming that the comic book was before the animated series. In fact, Springer didn't even have full representations of the characters to work from, so a lot of it looks a little wonky. Some of the stuff doesn't quite fit, but a lot of it is still that core root of what we know as Transformers. All right, so it starts off by telling us that there's a whole planet out there that orbits Alpha Centauri. It's called Cybertron, and it is all mechanical life. Everything is entirely mechanical. It introduces this high civilization there where they're Autobots, and they live in peace and they live in joy. But there is a faction led by a dude named Megatron that call themselves the Decepticons, and they just want to tear shit up. for no other reason than I guess they just want to. They're following Megatron. I say, but every paradise has its serpent, and on this world it was Megatron, commander of those who call themselves the Decepticons. And then Ravage is talking. I didn't even know Ravage talked. Am I misremembering? Am I misremembering the cartoon? Did Ravage talk in the cartoon? I don't remember that, but Ravage is talking, look at them below, contented, fools ripe for our conquest. Indeed, Ravage, we have lived peacefully with the Autobots for eons, slowly, secretly gathering our strength and pursuing our technology. Now we shall strike at those who have brought the stagnation of peace and plenty to Cybertron. So I guess Megatron's idea is that this society has become stagnant. This society has no conflict, so everything is so easy that nobody actually strives for something. Of course, I think he just wants to dominate and rule. You see a little bit of a different look on Megatron here. There's Soundwave, there's Ravage. A little bit of screen tone here. The coloring on this is way off. Now, I have never seen the inside of a Transformers #1 from 1984, but it is, like, the color is so weird. I don't know if the color's redone here. I don't know if it's just because of the paper. I don't know if it's just haphazardly put together, but there's a lot of, like, I don't know what's the term, but where it's like, it's over the line. So it's just a big blotch of color right there, but it's not clearly in the line. I don't know. Maybe it's because this is meant to soak in that newsprint paper, but on here, it's not that the colors or the choices come across as too gaudy or anything. It's just there's a lot of, like, overflow on the lines, and it just doesn't quite work. So anyway, Megatron and his people, they attack the Autobots. It throws Cybertron out of orbit. So now Cybertron is flinging across the galaxy and has been knocked out of orbit because of the sincerity, or I should say the severity of this war. And in the midst of this rises a hero. Like, even from page to page, that Megatron looks different than that Megatron. Just a little bit, but I love the screen tone in the eyes. I like that effect. But then they introduce that from the greatest of city-states, there came a leader to inspire the Autobots at the hour of their deadliest peril. That's Optimus Prime. We get introduced to him. He's got a combat mode. He can transform into a combat vehicle whose powers rival even Megatron's. There's more of this giant fighting. A lot of just generic looking Transformers. Interesting screen tone. One thing about this printing is the line work prints really well, and the screen tone is very, very clear. Here's some more of that coloring. We're just getting the splotch of the yellow kind of over. Now on newsprint, that would kind of sink in, and I think that this would be a much better panel with the way that that yellow would fade in and that screen tone right there. But alas, this is just the way it is. I think we got our first view of Bumblebee right there from behind. The planet is heading towards an asteroid belt, so they need to send a segment of Autobots out there to clear this asteroid belt. Optimus Prime says he's going to take some of his people to go and clear this in their own ship called the Ark, and Megatron hears about it, right? Megatron hears about it because Ravage, of course, is a big spy. Kind of like, once again, there's a lot of core elements to these characters and to the story that is present here, even though if it is a little bit shaky, a little bit like they don't know what to do. But this is something that happens with licensed comics very often. I remember when I was going through all the Gold Key Star Trek books on my own, you know, and to learn that the artist didn't know anything about the show. They'd never seen the show. They didn't know anything about the characters. They kind of just did it on their own and went with it. For instance, there's Castle Decepticon. That's home to Megatron. He finds out. They decide they're going to take a ship and go after these Autobots on this mission. And after they clear the asteroid belt, then they're going to attack them. That's exactly what they do here. Nothing really to write home about with the art. There are moments where it's cool, but it's just very inconsistent. It's kind of all over the place. I guess there's some decent inking. I don't know about the coloring, really, the way it's printing on this. It's just not quite working for me. But a big battle ensues, all kinds of chaos. So it gets right to it. And, you know, in the comic book, I mean, in the new comic book, as well as in the original animated show, They Awaken on Earth, we don't find out so much about the past of it until way later, right? If at all. So they're this big battle. They decide, because now they're close to Earth, and they scan it, and it seems like Earth is uninhabited. So Optimus takes the Autobots on a suicide mission, is going to ram the Ark into Earth, and hopefully the Decepticons follow, I guess, because they're not... Well, they are on the Ark, yes. So they're on the Ark, and he's going to crash it, kamikaze it, into this mountain. There it lays for 4 million years until a volcano erupts and awakens the Ark. And as the Ark awakens, like in the new series and like in the animated series, the robot, now it's not referenced as Teletron 1 here, but the Ark wakes up and sends out a scanner. The scanner can't read organic life, so it thinks that all these like planes and vehicles are sentient Earth life. So then it takes the Decepticons and the Autobots, because it doesn't understand the difference. It explains that the memory banks have been damaged in the crash, so it doesn't know the difference between Decepticons and Autobots, but it basically sets them up with these alt modes so that they can blend into the Earth life, or at least what this machine thinks is Earth life. Of course, we know it's just vehicles and stuff. But the Autobots, they are going to resemble earthly weapons and communication vehicles, and the Autobots are going to be, or communication devices and earthly weapons for the Decepticons, and the Autobots, of course, will be Earth vehicles. They awaken right next to each other. Very quickly, they kind of take their own way. They like kind of split off, and here, lots of words. The writing in this is not very good. I mean, it gets a lot of information across, but it does so in a very clunky way. Like, we have to take the time for every single Decepticon to mention who they are, what their significant power is. But we got Skywarp, Thundercracker, Starscream, we got Rumble and Frenzy, Soundwave, Laserbeak and Buzzsaw, and Ravage, and there's Megatron right there. They decide that they are going to try to dominate this Earth, right? And destroy the Autobots yet again. That's their plan. Then we see Ratchet and Optimus right there, and we're introduced in a similar fashion to all of the Autobots, including Ironhide and that really doofy original version of Ironhide. You can tell that they got maybe some toy designs, but not everybody, and it just kind of goes a little wonky. But we got Huffer, we've got Bumblebee, we've got Sunstreaker, we got Sideswipe right there, Brawn right there, Cliffjumper, there's Optimus, and then a whole bunch more. A bunch of just overly verbose explaining, but this is introducing us to the characters. Now, I talked about in Daniel Warren Johnson's Transformers book how I like that he's focusing in on just a few characters at first instead of just throwing everything at you. It kind of makes it feel like a more organic start to the story and a more natural introduction to all the characters. But here already we got a bunch more: Mirage, Blue Streak, Prowl, Jazz, Gears, Hound, Windcharger, Ratchet, Wheeljack, and Trailbreaker. And then they're just talking like, yo, let's take a look at the life on this Earth. They see all these vehicles. They think that, you know, that's life on Earth. So they send a Hound and a team out to do a little bit of recon work and find out a little bit more about this world that they're on. Then we get introduced to this dude who's like just hiking near this volcano, and he sees these Autobots streaking right across. So there we see him in their alt vehicle forms doing all their stuff. You know, Jumpers talking a little bit of shit with everybody. It's kind of interesting. The personalities are starting to already be clearly defined in some of these Transformers. So they go and find a bunch of vehicles. It's actually a drive-in. They think it's some kind of like religious ceremony with all these like, you know, vehicles, which they think are life at this point. They think that they're just like worshiping the screen or something. But then Laserbeak is spotting them, and now Laserbeak giving this information to Megatron. Megatron is assuming and thinking that the Autobots are making a pact with the denizens of Earth, these mechanical denizens of Earth. Meanwhile, they're coming, so here come the Autobots into this drive-thru. This is a nice little bit where this woman's like, all right, how many? Well, come on, you pay by the head, you know. So I guess they get in for free because nobody's driving these vehicles. She doesn't think too much of it. This dude is making out with his girlfriend. There's a random dude in the back seat. He's like, hey, Buster, Jesse, could you two disengage so I can see this movie? Oh, sorry. So they're making out. This dude can't see. I guess that's their buddy. So this is Buster Witwicky. It's not Spike. Now, I believe that I've heard, watching Michael Mercy's, he does these great History of Transformer toy videos. I believe that Buster is later revealed to be Spike's brother and that Spike eventually comes in. But right now the focus is on Buster. And while they're having this interaction, there's a crash that happens, and Bumblebee has crashed into this vehicle of theirs, and there's nobody in there, so he doesn't know what's going on. Meanwhile, the Decepticons attack. All these people start freaking out. The Autobots decide to transform and to fight back, and the humans are just like, what in the hell is going on? Now, the Autobots are like, why are these beings not defending themselves? And they eventually put together that these strange little things are the sentient life on Earth, and these mechanical objects are actually not life at all, and it's something they have to wrap their head around. But even right here, you know, for instance, I told Megatron this frontal assault tactic he's so fond of is foolish, Thundercracker. Guile and stealth are far more effective than missiles in the long run. We have to follow Megatron's ways, Starscream. It's been successful up to now. I don't think we should openly defy him as you've been known to do. So once again, we're getting that dynamic, that even the inner conflict amongst the Decepticons. The idea is that Starscream is always questioning Megatron. Maybe he feels like he's got better ideas, stuff like that, right? So you get this battle, it's all happening. Cliff Jumper has a glass gas gun, which when he fires it, the gas coats me, making my metal brittle and breakable as glass. That's a weird stretch. They're breaking apart. They start to go away, but Ravage is there. Him and Hound have a little bit of a confrontation. There's Soundwave, who looks like he's miscolored right there. And just some more, you know, this is the moment where they realize that these are people and these are just vehicles and not sentient life. So then they transform back. They're running around. Meanwhile, Buster is trying to figure out what's going on with this yellow bug, Volkswagen bug that he's finding. He gets inside. There's no ignition, no key, no gas pedal, and it starts driving by itself. And then he's like, wait, did these things just turn from robots into cars? Bumblebee drives and whisks him away. They wind up, he's guiding them through the steering wheel, winds up going home to his dad's spark plug, right? Spark plug at the house next to it has a garage. He's been trying to figure out what's wrong with this car or how it can self-drive, what's going on. Spark plug's like, oh, I love this. After all my years of trying to get you to put down the poetry and pick up a monkey wrench, it looks like you finally took your old dad's advice, fixing cars on the side, are you? Dad, I can explain. No need to explain, son. My shop's your shop. Use it any time you want. But just to let you know, son, I'm proud of you. But then, all of a sudden, they hear a whimpering voice from Bumblebee. This thing's alive. And he says, help me, please. I'm dying. Next, hey buddy, can you spare me some fuel? And that's it. Now we go immediately into the second issue, but we'll dive into that at another time. I do not have the second issue in physical format except for here, so we'll have to go through here, but what do you want to see? Do you want to see me go into Transformers number 2? And then from 3 on, I have the original issues, and we can talk a little bit more about the coloring, about the printing of it, and just, I want to see this world. It's interesting. I enjoyed it. I didn't necessarily, I knew going into it that this was a cheap, easy way to go ahead and get 1 and 2, which I don't have. And I have really low grade copies of 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and onward, but I wanted to be able to have a 1 and 2 to be able to start this revisit, or this visit for the first time, because I've never read this stuff. I'm intrigued. I want to keep going. Do you guys want to see issue 2? Let me know. Were you there for Transformers number 1? What's your recollection? Let me know. Overall, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed seeing the early starts to the lore and the mythology of Transformers, right? Let me liken it to this. So when I got into Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I sporadically watched it throughout season 2. But it was season 3 where I really locked in and became a huge Buffy fan, right? And then at a later date, FX, because at this time we didn't have Netflix, we didn't have the DVD sets, we didn't have anything like that. But at a later date, FX started rerunning Buffy. And I started setting my VHS recorder to start recording those episodes so I could finally see like how the Buffy stuff started in the television show, right? That's kind of the vibe and feeling that I'm getting here. Not that I'm being filled in on lore that I didn't know, but I'm getting to see almost like the prototypical version of what Transformers is going to become. Now, of course, Bob Budiansky, he winds up becoming the main writer. after issue 4 at issue number 5, and he writes this book for a long time. Then Simon Furman comes in. There's this whole thing about Simon Furman, who did the Marvel UK versions of this, added material, so that's interesting. I really do hope that Skybound and Robert Kirkman and the Energon universe, all that stuff, I hope they reprint these original Marvel books. It may be interesting to see how they can do that in certain things, because like in issue 3, I know that Spider-Man is there, freshly in the black costume. But I enjoyed this. You know, it was initially intended to be a 4-issue series, but it went on for 80 issues. This went from like 84 to like 92, something like that. There was a short-lived Generation 2 series. I actually got the first issue of that, so maybe we can dive into that. But I love doing these top-down, bottoms-up videos. I want to keep doing them. I know that you guys are liking them, but we need you to share out the word. Let everybody know that we're doing it. We're kayfabing in it, however you want to talk, but it's me going through comics with you, just chatting and talk about them, and I want to keep going through Transformers. So let everybody know that that's what we're doing. If you want to see more Transformers, let me know. If there's other books you want to see me go through, let me know. If there's certain decades you want to see me go through. We've been doing 70s, 80s, 90s, and modern comics, so I'm pleased and I'm excited to check this out again. This is truly more than meets the eye. All right, that was cheesy and that was lame, so I'm dipping out. Thank you all so much for checking out the video. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Join us over at patreon.com/PCP if you want to help support the channel. I've been Rockin Robbie Billups. Thanks for rocking with us. Transform, roll out, and station.